Greetings, and welcome to Reverse Engineering for Dummies, the What If User, by me, Micah Parks. So we're going to start off with a little bit about me. I started off my career in January 2018 at the National Security Agency, and then I figured out I wasn't getting paid enough, and then I moved into government contracting, and then I realized I didn't want to work for the government like in any capacity. And then I moved into the private sector, and now I work from home with my wife and my dog in my pajamas, and there's no longer a 5 a.m. commute in DC traffic, and I'm never going back to the office. I do lots of side projects. Most of my popular open source stuff revolves around JWK sets. I also have a small, very niche SaaS platform for Magic Link authentication. I do some reverse engineering projects, and we're going to talk about those today, and just tons of other stuff. I also wrote 3 CTF challenges for this event, and we're going to be talking about one of those today. It's called Kitty Letter. All right, so like everyone here, I am the user of countless mobile and web applications. In the context of software engineering, you may define me as the what if user, and the what if user in this context is what if a user finds that embedded API key, or what if a user finds out that this undocumented endpoint has no authorization. And some examples of me being the what if user before this was like in college, I wrote a program that would check my grades and email me updates about that, and I was the kid in econ class that figured out if you just looked a little closer in the network tab, they were kind enough to give you the answers to all of the questions for homework, so that was nice of them. You may also think of a malicious user, but I don't really think about myself like that. That has bad connotations. I think of myself as an experienced user. So as an experienced user, I don't have any malicious intent, but I do have objectives, and those objectives don't always align with the intended use case. I like to make my own experience, is how I put it. And for each of these projects that we're going to talk about, we are going to go over my experienced user objectives, the software flaws and techniques, and then we're going to play tech lead after that. So I'm going to tell you, the tech lead of this project, what you can do to fix the flaws that I've identified. And we're going to start off with Kitty Letter, which is an Android game. Then we're going to be talking about a Concept2 waitlist, which is a waitlist to buy products on the Concept2 website. And then we're going to be talking about an auction house publish subscribe system. And I'm not going to be mentioning the auction house because they're a really small company. So for each of these projects, they're all really old projects. These are projects I did at least 3 years ago. They're all very low stakes. They're all generally for my amusement, and the issues are irrelevant today. So for Kitty Letter, this one in particular didn't have any real issues, and the app hasn't been updated in 3 years anyways, so there's that. For the Concept2 waitlist, they don't have any waitlists anymore, so that means the problem is solved. They've decommissioned all their waitlists, and the auction house actually fixed all their issues, which is fantastic, so that's also a good outcome. So now we're going to set the scene for the first one, which is Kitty Letter. And just as a reminder, this app hasn't been updated in a long time. So if you want to install it and play it, you're probably going to get an error like the one in the bottom left here. It just doesn't run on newer versions of Android anymore. So I love the idea of mobile games, but I don't actually really like any mobile games, and especially right now. But I do try a lot of mobile games out. And one of the mobile games that I tried out a while ago was called Exploding Kittens, which is the Android adaptation of the Exploding Kittens card game. And the same people that own the Exploding Kittens IP also make this game called Kitty Letter. And the game is basically like a Scrabble-esque game where you get a letter wheel that you can see there in the top right. An easy word is ice, as you can see, because you draw between the letters to make words. Another good one would be tires. There's also like tons of words. You can use all of those letters to make words, but I don't have that kind of vocabulary. Yeah, anyways, this game has multiplayer, and that means I want to play it against my wife, and it's not acceptable to lose. So I first tried to go through the single player campaign, which only takes about an hour, and while I was doing that, I learned about the crazy word list that this game has. Like, it's kind of insane. They have like a bunch of sexual slang in the game, but I didn't include that in the slides, but some words that they accept are like duty, noob, taco cat, and ketchup-ear. If you play ketchup-ear and beat someone with that word, That's great. They also don't accept some words like sun hat, but for some reason they accept sun ray. They don't accept Angus, Muslim, or hacky. So the reason that I bring up this word list is because there are some inherent characteristics about myself that are going to make me at a disadvantage when playing my wife in this game. So I made this helpful table here at the top. My wife has a bachelor's in English, and I require spell check to communicate. And my wife is a straight A student, but I'm also kind of stupid. So we have those, and I want to cheat in this game so I can win. And I could use an online Scrabble solver, but those aren't perfect. Those have false positives, those have false negatives. I want the best way to cheat. So our objective here is to find the custom word list in this game and then make a custom cheat program. And just as a reminder, this is the CTF challenge, one of them. All right, so if you didn't know, Android apps are APK files. And APK files are downloaded from the Google Play Store to your Android app and then installed. If you want to get your hands on the file itself, it's kind of difficult, depending on what you do. So one easy way to do it would be to like use custom software where you can just run someone's desktop app or browser extension and then download the APK file that way. The most difficult way to do it would be to actually install it on your Android device and then try to extract it from it. And there's other websites that like generate direct download links, and then the thing that I did, which is also pretty sketchy, is using an APK mirror website. These websites exist purely to sell you ads and embed malware in Android apps so that when you download it, you get a nice Trojan version instead. But I decided to use one of those because it's so easy to type kitty letter APK file into Google and then click to download. And once you have that APK file, if you didn't know, APK files are actually just renamed zip files with just some expected files inside that zip file. So you just rename it to .zip and extract. And then after you extract it, you'll get what's there on the left. We have a little tree that doesn't go too deep, but the place that I like to start with Android reverse engineering, which I've done professionally in a very small capacity, is start with the .dex files. These are Dalvik executable files, which contain a lot of like compiled Java assets and other junk that you're going to want to take a look at when you're reverse engineering something. And there's two ways that you can take a closer look at these .dex files. You can use an open source project called dex2jar, which is what I use because it's free. Or you can use a professional tool called Jeb, and Jeb is fantastic. It's basically like our reverse engineering IDE specifically for Android. So it'll decompile the DEX files and the Java files, and then you can navigate through it like a normal IDE. So I use dex2jar, and then I get what's there on the right. And it's basically just the first party code there at the top, just the A.A.8 package, and then all those class files, then the third party code there at the bottom. The first thing I did was take a look at the first party code, which was not anything special. It was just like generic Android code, so that was not interesting to me at all. Just to mention, like, to take class files and look at the source code, you're going to use a Java decompiler, and an open source project for that would be JDGUI. Anyways, while I was doing this, I learned that this was a Unity game because, as you can see there in the third-party code, there's a Unity 3D.player file. And that made me take a look back, go one step back, and look at the extracted assets from the APK file. And at this point, I'm just looking for the word list, like what file contains the word list. So I'm grepping recursively for words that I know that are probably not in the source code file, but they are in the word list file because they're valid words. So the one I chose was butter, and butter works to match the file at assets bin data datad.unity3d, which is a Unity 3D file. I have no idea what this is at this point. So I open it up in a hex editor to see if it's something really easy. I can just copy and paste all the content from it, but you can see in the bottom left there, in the hex editor, it's definitely some sort of custom file format, and I don't want to write a parser for that. Sounds like a lot of work, and I'm not in for that. So I started Googling around of how to extract Unity 3D assets, and back 3 years ago, when you were Googling this, it mostly led you to a bunch of like game dev forums for Unity, and I think Bunny83 sums up the vibe on that pretty well. He says, that doesn't sound like you're trying to develop games. more like you're trying to steal some content. So there weren't a lot of helpful guides in the game dev forums, if you can believe it. But while I wouldn't agree with the characterization that I was trying to steal content, I do know that pirates would be doing similar things to what I'm doing. And if there's one thing pirates are good at, it's sharing. So I just typed in like Unity 3D extractor into GitHub, and at the time, Asset Studio popped up. And that's how I was able to load the Unity 3D file. Today, there's way more GitHub projects for this sort of thing, and it's a lot easier. But Asset Studio, you have to compile it yourself, obviously. And you have to do this on Windows because Unity is like developed on Windows. And yeah, so I loaded that into Asset Studio, looking around for like the scene hierarchy and the assets classes and stuff. There's not a lot of helpful stuff in there. You have to go to the assets list tab. And then as you're scrolling through there, the most helpful things are the text assets. So if you sort by that type, you'll be able to find all the files that are the word list files. And then extracting those from there is a breeze. You kind of just click on them and then click download. And then I wrote a custom program that uses those as input. And it looks something kind of like this. So on the left there, you'll see like the terminal program I wrote. It accepts all the letters that are on the letter wheel there and then prints out everything that matches in the word list files. And for this one, the best words are going to be tearful and refutal, and I put some gameplay so you wouldn't get bored. Yeah, so I used this a couple times, and then immediately I was like, I need to play against my wife. So I started playing against my wife, and obviously she knew I was cheating immediately, because she knows I don't even know what like refutal means or fluter or who cares. Anyways, I won. That's the important part. And I did it marginally better than an online Scrabble solver, so that was great. So now you're the tech lead for Kitty Letter, and I'm here to recommend changes to you, and I'm going to tell you that this actually fits the threat profile for this game. Like, I wouldn't recommend any changes. You're only marginally better at cheating when you extract assets from a game file. Like, what kind of insane person's going to go through and like reverse engineer a game to extract those assets and we can custom program? Like, you don't need to protect yourself against that. But if you really insisted and you wanted to go one step further, there's two separate things that you could do. One of them is obfuscate the text assets. I'm not sure if Unity supports this kind of thing natively, but if they do, that's what I would use. And if they don't, then you have to write your own custom solution for that. That'd be a little bit of work. Another thing that would probably be even more work is to write your own API check endpoint that would check like if the word is valid and like how many points the word has. This would make the game online only, so the gamers would get mad at you. And then something else that you could do on top of that is Google Play has an app licensing feature. So when you get users to download your game from the Google Play Store, you can issue a license to them, and then you can use that license to authenticate to your backend APIs, which means that it's harder to reverse engineer your backend APIs, and you're only having like gameplay from people with legitimate copies of your game. So there's that. All right, so now we're moving on to the second project, and I need to set the scene for this one. So this is the Concept 2 waitlist. So it is late 2020, and everyone wants exercise equipment, and I also want exercise equipment. The thing that I want the most is down there in the bottom left. I want a Concept 2 Model D indoor rower. It's a very expensive rowing machine, but it's supposed to be one of the best or whatever. That's just what I know. And I've been on the wait list for this item for over 8 months. And every week, I get an email about my status on the wait list and my target order date. And that target order date gets pushed back every single week. So I am on eBay on my phone at night, and I am doom scrolling on eBay to see if anyone has given up on their dreams of exercising and would like to sell me their rower for less than they bought it for. But wouldn't you know it, it's just a bunch of gross hustlers who are trying to sell the rowing machine for like 2 to 3 times the cost. And I don't want to buy a $3,000 rowing machine. I included this picture of this guy with toilet paper, if that makes any connections from that time. But yeah, so there's also these other gross and like, I thought they were scammers at first, but it turns out they're hustlers too. They're trying to sell skip the waitlist products on eBay, and these range from anywhere from $70 to like $300. And there's no way I'm paying like $300 to skip the waitlist so I can buy a $900 rowing machine. That's insane. But then I run across the lowest effort post I have seen of the night. And this idiot was like, his title was waitlist link for Concept 2 Model D rower, no description, and then he includes this screenshot here on the right. And I get excited when I see this. And I go to my computer and I start a stopwatch and a GitHub project. And according to my GitHub records, this took me less than 25 minutes. And my objective is to bypass the waitlist. And why did this get me excited? Well, this hustler thinks the waitlist is a link. And I don't know what that means at this point, but it sounds like I can bypass whatever that is. And then that link is a page on shop.concept2.com. And that's their consumer-facing website. So I know that they're not using a third-party waitlist system or anything like that. So that means that there's a lot more margin for error, which is fantastic. Another thing that I noticed was the title of the product is different. So on the left, we have the screenshot from the hustler. It's called the Model D Row ERG, and then the part number is incremented. And in the bottom middle there, we have the screenshot of the waitlisted page. So we have Model D Indoor Rower, different name, probably gonna do a rebrand, and the part number is different. So immediately I start trying to bypass the waitlist. So this is something like adding URL query parameters, so like waitlist equals true, blah, 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 no luck there. Then I start to see if they've linked it anywhere by accident on their website. So I'm scouring those tiny links in the footer. I'm going through all of those, link trees so they can categorize their products and stuff. No luck there. Last place I check is the sitemaps. If you don't know what sitemaps are, they're a way for you to tell Google what pages you're publishing, and Google will be happy to index those for you and rank them on their search results. If you're a small business and you are publishing products on your ERP or whatever this is, what is it called, CRM, then it's very easy to make a mistake and publish something in your sitemaps that was supposed to be a private product. But no luck in the sitemaps either. But as I am looking around this website, I learned more about the URL structure. And the URL structure looks something like this. So in the top left here, we have the URL for the waitlisted item that I wanted. So it's shop.concept2.com/indoor rowers/298 Model D with PM5 to HTML. And they also had a Model D rower at the time. So the first path element is the same for that one, indoor rowers, 311, and then Model E with PM5 to HTML. And as I'm editing the URLs, I notice that these reduce down and have like, they're kind of flimsy. So the only important part is actually the 3 numbers. And just to drive that point home, I have the equivalent URLs in the bottom box here. So we can make the first path element just a dash, then 298 dash.html, and that'll take us to the same product page. And then just to drive it home even further, the first path element can literally be anything. And then you need 298 dash, because that dash is mandatory, anything.html. So now we have 1,000 potential product pages that we want to look at. And I am going to download every single one of them. So when you are querying for a needle in a network haystack like this, and it's HTML, which is like going to be static content, it's best just to grab every page, put it in a local cache, and then you can query off of that directly instead of having to do all these network requests back and forth. So that there was the first program that downloaded all 1,000 pages into a directory, and then there was a second filtering program because I didn't want to look through 1,000 pages of mostly 404 content. And I used a package called GoQuery, which is a lot like jQuery, which allows me to look based on HTML selectors and CSS selectors and content and stuff like that. I filtered for the updated part number, which the eBay person was kind enough to give me. And that got me to this product page here in the bottom right. And it looks like this is the page where I can add the actual Model D Row ERG to my cart. And that's great. Then I took it a step further, and I noticed that there is this span tag on this page for join waitlist. And that looks familiar to me because join waitlist is that big green button there on the product page where you can actually join the wait list. But it's hidden on this page. So I query for that span tag as well. And I find every single waitlisted product that Concept 2 had offered at the time, which included like the Model E, a skiing machine, a bike machine, a bunch of attachments. And they also included the span tag on pages of unreleased products that they hadn't even announced yet. So there were like some ski machine attachments that didn't even have waitlists for them, but they still had the span tag. So I found all those. Technically, I could add them to my cart. Doesn't mean they exist in the real world, but yeah. So now I have this page, and I want to see if it works. I'm able to add it to my cart. I'm able to get to the checkout screen, put in my shipping information, able to get to the checkout payment screen, and I'm sitting on the checkout review screen, and I'm thinking to myself, should I actually use this link? And the first question I have to myself is this ethical? And do I actually want to spend $1,100 in a row? Because after taxes and shipping, I was like, oh God, $200 more. And I wanted to ask you, the audience, this question because I'm curious. So I have a quick 2-question form for you. You can type in that URL in the top right or scan that QR code. And I want to hear from you if you think it's ethical or if you find it personally acceptable, which I think might be different. And you can take this in the context of all the hustlers and scammers as well if you want, or not. I just want to see what it is, and I'll share the results at the end of this. And just to close out the story, I actually kind of just ignored this project for the rest of the weekend, and I got my waitlist email next Monday, and it was actually the exact same link, no URL query parameters, so I totally could have bought it, and then I ended up buying it on Monday. Yeah. So, for tech lead time.
Did you buy it?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I did. I bought it after I got off the wait list, which happened to be that next Monday. So like the project was on like Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, and then I actually bought it, yeah. I know it's hard to tell, but I did actually buy it. Did I use it? All right, we're moving on. So for the recommended changes for this one, I would definitely recommend some changes. And I'm gonna start off with the business justification for this. And that revolves around the secondary market, as we would call it in the business world, or gross hustlers. So here's the business justification. Scammers, hustlers, whatever, have found this waitlist. There's no authentication on it. They can use it as many times as they want. They start drop shipping your own product for 2 to 3 times the cost to your customers, and they're keeping all that profit. Not only that, but they're so lazy that they're selling access to this waitlist link for like $300 to $70, and that's also just ripping off your customers. And just to drive home the fact that they are price gouging your customers, if your customers don't like your rowing machine at $900, think about how much they're not going to like it at $3,000. Like if they want to return it at $3,000 because they bought it from a hustler, they're really going to have like a more negative perception of your company than if you were able to buy it at the actual retail price. And this reminds me a lot of the Blue Sky waitlist. If you don't know what Blue Sky is, it is a Twitter alternative that was born at Twitter, and then it became its own separate entity after Elon Musk bought it. And it's basically Twitter, but they limited the number of users that could join their platform for like a year or so. And they had 2 ways to join the platform. There was an email waitlist similar to this Concept 2 thing, and then existing users on the platform were able to get invite codes to invite new users to join the platform. And this enabled some kid with a subreddit, a bot for that subreddit, a Discord server, and the ability to write Medium articles to make over 30 grand. And the way this kid did it was you paid him $30 to get an invite code, and then you got to join his Discord community, and then you were expected to give him all of your invite codes so he could sell them to other people. And he had the nerve to name his community the Pay It Forward community, as if paying him $30 was contributing to some overall larger community. Anyways, I wrote a Medium article about this guy, and at the time, I just encouraged everyone to go to Mastodon because people were just giving away invite codes on Mastodon. You can look that up if you want on medium.com. My username is just Micah Parks there. All right, getting into tech lead time now. And this one might shock you, but my recommendation to you is to build a real waitlist system. What that might look like is kind of up to you. My ideal version of a waitlist system is going to be tying things that add barriers to hustlers drop shipping or reselling your items. So what that looks like is they have to create an account, they have to have a shipping address, and they have to have a payment method all up front, not allowed to change it. When you're off the wait list, you can buy one and we're all done. That's a lot of work. I know no one's probably gonna do that. Another easy way to limit how many people can buy your product is to do unique one-time coupon codes. You do the same email wait list. You email everyone a unique coupon code. They put that in their cart, adds the private item to their cart. They're allowed to check out with it. And then that coupon code expires. This one's not as good because, scammers can just sign up with 1 million emails, but it's much better than letting anyone with access to the link buy as many as they want, which is what was happening. Something else that Concept 2 definitely should have done was prevent web scraping. And this is a really easy project for me because all of the numeric IDs were 3 digits, and they were just auto-incremented. They just went up. Anyone can write a program with number go up. So I would recommend using randomly generated IDs. There are so many projects for this out there. One of the ones that everyone should know about are UUIDs. They're 128 bits of entropy in hex format, separated by hyphens. And that's the same amount of entropy in AES 128, which is an encryption algorithm that's still used today. If you make your IDs that, there's no way someone's gonna go through that whole address space. It's just not gonna happen. Another thing you can do is, if a user is generating hundreds of 404 content pages like I was, you can serve them a CAPTCHA. And a CAPTCHA is gonna stop someone like me because I don't wanna bother clicking through 1,000 CAPTCHAs. I'm just gonna give up at that point. Another thing that you can do that would not have stopped me was rate limiting, because I was already rate limiting on the client side. But that's just the same thing you should do. And I think more small businesses, I'm sure everyone in this room is probably familiar with Cloudflare, but using a web application firewall like Cloudflare can do some of this stuff for you. Cloudflare is free. You basically put the infrastructure of a massive company in front of your infrastructure and they proxy request to you. And when something's going weird, they throw CAPTCHAs, they do rate limiting, they do all that good stuff for you. Cool. So now we are going to be talking about the auction house pub sub system. And if you haven't noticed, everything is expensive, like very expensive. And if you're a young couple trying to buy furniture that isn't gonna fall apart, it's pretty much impossible. And it's also going to be expensive to buy furniture that falls apart. So I just wanted to drive this home. That in the middle there is a picture of a TV media center from IKEA. It's made of particle board, and you have to put it together yourself, and it looks kind of flimsy. And that's like $1,200. And then there on the left is a solid wood media center with metal handles and glass that my wife and I bought. That top part comes off so it's easier to move, and I bought that with my wife for $2 because we were the only bidders, and it was fantastic. And it holds all our junk, and I'm very happy with it. And that has motivated my wife and I to buy all of our furniture at liquidation and estate sales because they have the best deals. The only thing is it's all local, and you have to move it yourself. And speaking of it being all local, I'm not gonna mention the auction house in this one, but yeah, so. So if small auction house websites are known for something, it's not making a good website experience. So Craigslist also doesn't have a good website experience. And when I was looking to buy a car like 4 or 5 years ago, something I did was build my own front end for Craigslist cars so I could swipe on cars like Tinder. And it was fantastic. And I did that for this auction house as well. And some advice for making your own custom front end are going to be like client-side rate limiting, already mentioned that one, using a database or a local cache for when you're like looking through websites on how to extract descriptions, part numbers, images and stuff. And when you are taking images, only store images as strings, like the URLs to the images. You don't need to download all the images because first of all, you're probably never gonna look at all those images. And second of all, the website's already hosting them for you. You can just point to their CDN. It's cheaper on both sides. So This app was very standard Tinder style stuff. So like it would start up and there'd be a picture of the item, short description, swipe down for more items, or swipe down for more pictures, swipe up for a more, complete description, left to ignore, swipe right to save, that kind of stuff. And while I am building this Tinder style app, there are hundreds upon hundreds of messages being logged in the console, and also like dozens of errors as well. And it's getting kind of annoying, and I want to take a look at this. And most of this stuff is from a JavaScript package called pubnub. And if you don't know what pubnub is, it's a silly developer name for pub/sub, and it's a commercial product that does this sort of thing. So I want to investigate what pubnub is and see if I can incorporate it into my Tinder-style app for a better user experience. And if you don't know how pub/sub systems work, we have a publisher, channels, and subscribers. So publishers publish messages to channels, and all the subscribers currently listening in on that channel are going to get that message. Typically, we don't care about message integrity or replayability in pub/sub. It's more like if you're listening, you get it, and if you don't, no big deal. In the context of an auction house, this is going to be for things like you've been outbid, or new items are available for auction, or the auction's ending or has been extended, that sort of thing. And while I am looking into these pubnub errors, I decide that I'm going to take a look at all of the files that the web browser loads for this page. And in those files, I find two interesting JavaScript snippets. So there's the one here on the left with the pubnub constant being initialized, and then we have another pubnub constant being initialized as well for user pubnub. So the implication at this point is user data, probably for the specific user that's logged in, is going to be in the second pubnub channel, and the more general data is going to be in the top pubnub channel. It could also be like an admin pubnub channel or something. This publish subscribe system was kind of whack. But the really important thing here were the subscriber keys, which are the API keys for the subscribers, and those are redacted. But I was able to take those out because they're embedded in there. And it's not necessarily bad to embed subscriber keys in your front-end apps, but you have to make sure that they have the proper authorization. So that means like they only have access to the channels they're supposed to have access to, and they can't publish on channels unless they're supposed to publish, that sort of thing. And then we have this interesting function here in the bottom right. This one is most useful because it gives us the channel names. And something that I hear about sometimes when designing pub/sub systems is, oh, we don't need to add any authorization to our subscriber keys because we have obscure channel names that are hard to guess, that sort of thing. I wouldn't recommend that, but that's kind of irrelevant to this use case because that's not actually what ended up happening. Anyways, so now that I have the subscriber keys and some channel names, I'm going to go ahead and look for the official Go package that pubnub publishes, and then write my own custom client that listens on all those channels, and then put all of that data into a database, and then go to dinner and wait for all my messages to come in. And man, there was a lot of stuff. A lot of it's interesting, but not necessarily particularly useful. And we have the auction data structure here. This one's like got the auction name, the end date, stuff like that, so they can use it to create new auctions and then, cancel auctions or push them off longer. They always get pushed off longer. We have the items, we have IDs, name, private status. I didn't actually find any private status items. I think it's an unused feature, but that's something I'm still curious about. Like, are there private items and can I see what they are without actually being invited to that? Anyways. We also got a lot of bidder information. I think we were even getting like bidder billing addresses, which is a big no-no. So we got unredacted bidder usernames. We got bid counts for users and things like that. And then a lot of bid information as well. So we got like the increment for the bid, the top bid, and the current bid. And the way like bidding systems work is people put bids in, and then there's like increments on the bids. So if I bid $10, it starts at $10. and now I'm the winning bidder, but you bid $13 and the increment's $1, so now the current bid is $11. So if I bid $12, it's automatically going to go up to $13 because you put your top bid there. It's going to be the minimum of the top 2 bidders is the current bid. And this isn't super necessarily interesting when you're building a Tinder-style app to buy stuff, but now we're going to switch roles to the fraudulent seller because now we have everyone's top bids, and that's a lot of fun. So I made this helpful graph if you're a fraudulent seller. So normally you have fraud mode on the left with everything in the blue is below the current bid, so it doesn't matter if you bid there. And then everything in the orange is above the current bid. It's kind of risky to bid there because you don't know if there's any top bids that are going to be above your bid. And if you want to capture that top dollar amount for your item, you're going to want to put your bid right below their top bid, right? But worst case scenario, you win your own item, you pay the buyer's premium for that, and then maybe you even get caught buying your own item, and then that's a no-no. But with everyone's top bid information, it's great because here in the blue, you can't bid there. In the red, you shouldn't bid there because above the top bid, you're going to win the item. But now you have all this value here that you're very easily able to capture. So in this scenario, it looks like the current bid's about $450, but the top bid for the top user is about $650. So you bid $649, the buyer pays top dollar at $649, and bam, you are all set. Like, you just captured all that money. So that's kind of a problem. And I remember reaching out to both Concept 2 and this auction house about this. Concept 2 did not respond. The auction house did not respond, but the auction house did fix it, so that's great. Decommissioning is also a good fix. Yeah, so let's do tech lead time. So first thing I would recommend that you do is audit your publish subscribe system. You need to check your message contents to see if there's anything sensitive in there that is being published to the front-end client, such as like the top bid, or if there's any PII. You definitely don't want everyone to know the billing address for other bidders. Like if someone wins the item for something that you're looking at and you lost it, now you know where the item is going, now you know how to harass them or take it back or something like that. Something else that you definitely need to take a look at is the API key authorization. I'm not sure if those front-end subscriber API keys had access to like publish messages or do a bunch of other stuff. Definitely need to check into that. Something else they should do is separate the channels. Every single person on the website was getting all the bid information for all thousands of items on the website. You don't need that information. You need to separate your channels out to what is currently loaded, you know, what the user is bidding on currently, and anything they have saved, things like that. They don't need, you know, pub sub messages for every single item. And the last thing I would do is recommend checking for evidence of fraud. Surely there are records of past auctions. Should be pretty easy to see if any users are organizing to get other users to pay top bid. A little bit of data analytics, kind of out of scope for a small business, but something I would recommend doing. And another thing that this business could do is just the typical web application firewall stuff. You know, you need to add a CAPTCHA, you need to add rate limiting. And the last recommendation is just to check your console output before deploying. Hundreds of messages and dozens of errors within just a couple minute time span is kind of crazy. You need to make sure that it's a little more sane before you push deploy. And yeah, we're gonna wrap up now. So in conclusion, we talked about Kitty Litter, which was an Android game. We took the text assets out of there, able to find the word list to make a custom cheat program. That was great. For Concept 2, there were a ton of hustlers and scammers that were kind enough to inform us that the waitlist link was public. We were able to find that. And the auction house had a really janky publish subscribe system. And we were able to see everyone's top bids. And yeah, they need to fix that. But they did fix that, so that's great. And that is it for the presentation. A little bit more about me. I actually took off work to come here and talk to you, and I thought it was fun. I came here to meet people, so if you want to say hi, you can contact me on my website there. You can follow me on GitHub, and I don't like where I work currently, so you are welcome to hire me full-time or contract. And I also want to point out some great programs for the young person in your life. So the government isn't good at paying you money, but they are good at student programs. So it's definitely the fastest way to get a security clearance is if you're a student. You get salary, housing, and maybe a car. I know the Stokes program gives you your own car. For the NSA Cooperative Education Program, those are for freshmen and sophomores in college, and you get to rotate between working full-time and being a student full-time, and that's fun. And then the Stokes Scholarship is a scholarship. Typical, you get college for free, but you have to work for us for like a year or two afterwards, that kind of thing. And for the adult in your life, which is probably you, if you want a cheap online computer science master's degree, I learned about this from a bunch of people at Capital One. There's a Georgia Tech program that's really cheap. Today, it'll run you between $7,000 and $8,000. My wife is doing it right now, and it was cheaper last year, though. And you get to specialize in something in computer science, and also it's a master's degree. So that's it. I'm open for questions now. And I do appreciate these survey results. I think it's funny that it's so obvious that people think it's personally acceptable, but think it's unethical. And that's kind of what I was expecting. My wife said it was both unacceptable in both scenarios. Okay, got any questions? Yeah, I did that from scratch. So there's this, I don't know a lot about like developing Android or iOS apps, so I used a Go package called Fine, which cross-compiles to Android, iOS. I don't know if they still support web, but yeah, it just compiled to all of those things, and I side-loaded it as an Android app. Yep. All right, that's it.